Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide.
So it's Labor Day.
Yay, happy Labor Day.
I hope you're doing something relaxing to take a break from labor.
I hope so.
Unless you're in labor, then enjoy that baby.
Oh my goodness.
So welcome. Well, we know that some of you may be listening another day because it is a holiday, the day that this is releasing. And we have been trying very hard to release new episodes on holidays because so many people tell us how much they enjoy the podcast and we just feel like we don't want to let people down.
Yeah.
I had someone recently tell me that she binged us, which sometimes happens. She listened to she listened to every episode. And I said to her, oh my gosh, that's a lot of us. We've been doing it for more than 5 years. And she said, I learn at least one new thing from every episode. Me too. and it really leads to why we want to release as many episodes as possible, because it matters to us so much that people value this podcast. We also enjoy recording it.
We do. Yeah.
Okay, so we're here today to talk about the title, which is What Are Sensory Experiences? And I think the R really should be all uppercase because the way we want to say that is, what are sensory experiences? There are things being advertised out in the world and have the word sensory in them. Like, I don't know, like audio only things, videos that folks are not actually multisensory enough for young children. This episode, by the way, was inspired. We said there was going to be a special shout out, right? Last week when we sort of plugged this episode. This episode was inspired by my son's girlfriend, Angela, and her cousin, Rachel. When I told them that we sometimes give credit to people, they just laughed. And I thought, you can laugh if you want, but I'm using your first names.
Still using your name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Angela and Rachel are common names.
Yeah.
You know who you are.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for informing me. They actually informed me of things out in the world that we don't want to get sued for naming specifically, but that are calling themselves sensory when it's just not enough sensory for young children. In order for young children to understand their world, they need to be manipulating real three-dimensional objects. They need to be able to use multiple senses at once. They need to be touching, seeing, hearing. It's nice when they can be smelling. It's why I love Play-Doh.
Yes.
Because Play-Doh has a scent that takes me back to childhood. Yes. They need to be engaging as many of their senses as possible. And we know that under the age of 2, children will put everything in their mouth. Somewhere around 2.5, many children outgrow that because their senses now are operating in a little more coordinated way, but also because they have figured out enough about the world that they understand what belongs in their mouth and what does not belong in their mouth. It takes some children longer, takes some children sometimes some extra support and therapy, but eventually we figure out what belongs in our mouth and not hopefully. And if not, there are ways that we can work with children.
Yeah.
Okay. So we want children to have as many multisensory experiences as possible. If they have sensitivity issues having to do with sensory experiences, we need to figure out how to adapt our activities so that they can still take part in it. What is not sensory enough for young children are one-dimensional or two-dimensional experiences, many of which you see on a screen. That it is not, I was watching something, it had food. It was a video.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a video of the real food. It was cartoony.
It was cartoony. Yeah, because when you sent that to me, I'm like, what is this? It was cartoony. It wasn't real food. It
Wouldn't
wasn't real animals either.
there was nothing real about it.
It was all cartoon.
It was a cartoon. Children enjoy the movement and expressions of cartoons, but they also need real interaction, right?
Yeah.
And I think most people would agree with that they need real human interaction. They also need real artifacts and real materials to explore.
Right.
A great sensory experience for a child would be to taste test that food.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where you can see it, smell it, taste it. You can see the differences between the foods better than in a drawing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
In order for children to begin to classify objects in their brains and understand what is the same and what is different, and to distinguish one thing from another, they have to see things near each other. So let's say you want children to understand different fruits. Ideally, I would give them a taste test of oranges, apples, grapes. They need to see the difference in the size, the texture, the taste, the smell.
Yeah.
If I want children to explore or understand vegetables, you need to give them a carrot, a cucumber, lettuce, kale, string beans, corn.
Yeah.
These things look, taste, feel, and smell different.
Yeah.
So, when we're watching a cartoon of, I want you to think about this, of the beach, that's way different than smelling the beach, which has a particular, as people who live near a shore, it has a particular smell to be at the beach. Feeling the grains of sand and the water.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the grains of sand, I'll be honest. I've never been. One of my sisters has a friend who says the problem with the beach is that it has too much sand. I'll agree with that. But it's important for children to explore it, and it's important for children to feel it to their ability to take in this sense of it. There's sounds at the beach that you can't replicate anywhere else. The sound of the water, right?
Yeah. If you have not been there, you can't even imagine what it really sounds like.
For those of you who are in more landlocked areas, there's a sound to the ocean that is unlike any other sound I've ever heard.
Yeah.
It is calming. It is ferociously natural.
Yes.
It is something that you can't replicate in a cartoon.
No, you really can't.
There's even something to you're at the beach and you realize when you have to put your shoes on because the sand got hot.
Yeah. Yes. It's like, if you're not experiencing that, it's like, do you really know what the ocean and the beach is like? Right. So I feel like we said this in another episode once. It's like, if you've not actually seen an animal, I think we were talking about at that time, in person, do you really know what the animal is? If you can't touch it, feel it, see it, hear it, smell it even, like, do you really know what an elephant is? I mean, do you?
We did another episode, I believe. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Where we talked about touch being one of the most, being the most important sense.
Yes.
When your child is watching video, they are using sight, sound, right? Hearing. Right. They're seeing it, they're hearing it. They might be touching a screen,
pushing,
but that's not the same as touching a three-dimensional object.
Yes.
But it's mostly two senses.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to harken back to that other episode and say that touch makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
If I put a piece of corn, a celery stalk, and a piece of lettuce in a bag and blindfolded you, and you couldn't smell it, I pinch your nose and I blindfold you, and you reached your hand into that bag, you would be able to tell me which one is which.
You would. Yeah.
When children are looking at videos, we are depriving them of that experience. I know that the word sensory is being used in a lot of marketing. And that's because because there's a lot of information out in the world about the importance of engaging children's senses. Because it is in the marketing doesn't make it a highly sensory experience. You really need to think about what the children are being asked to do and how many senses are involved. And like we said in that other episode, touch is very, 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 very important.
Yeah.
You know, you really need to give this some thought. I know that we are in a highly video era, if that makes sense. We're in a very, very big video era. And families are always looking for educational videos, which is better than showing them random videos, I guess.
Correct.
But it doesn't replace interaction with you. And it doesn't replace the humanity of education. It doesn't replace human emotion and thought. It it thinks, but humans can inject their own experiences, their own mental models. I know. So looking for educational things, that's good, but it has to be, what word am I looking for? It has to be of a certain quality.
Yeah, because just because education is in the title or the description does not make it an educational video.
And you know what? Educational videos are never going to be as good as interacting with you. Never. When we look at, and we have said this, I think in a prior episode, there are certain reasons that technology is really good to use with children. Yeah. One is to communicate. Another is to research. And the third is to create. If we are just sitting them in front of a video, it's not as educational as any hands-on multi-sensory experience they could be having. There are situations in which I know you're going to be like, I need to show this kid a video or something. Please pick a good show like Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, Sesame Street. Pick one of those really good shows. There are other shows that children love, but they run at a very rapid speed, which is not good for their brain development. You need like one topic for an entire episode. And the episode needs to go somewhat slowly and not jump from one image to another image to another image to another image, because that's not good for how their brains fire. I guess what I'm doing is asking you all to be very picky.
Yeah. And vet the video before you put it on the screen for your child. Right. Because I think that sometimes happens or like maybe you'll vet the first video, but some of those, it's like a series that just keeps like, here's the next episode, and you haven't watched all those. And then you're just mindlessly sitting there in front of cartoon fruit. And
it's not just videos. It's also this, I can sit in a classroom in an early childhood program and talk about the weather, or I can take children out right before it's going to rain to smell the weather.
The rain. Yeah.
And then have them feel the air, which is moist.
Yeah.
And I know some people don't like that word. Did you know that?
Moist. I know, but
I digress. I don't know. I digress. Why? You can have them kind of rub their hands together and feel the moisture in the air.
Yeah.
Light drizzle, you can take them out and let them feel. It's always sort of this choice. I can show you a video of this, or I can take you to it or bring it to you. I can sit in a classroom and talk about this, or I can take you to it or bring it to you.
Right.
If you want to know what is a sensory experience, it's when we take the children to it or bring it to them so that they can manipulate three-dimensional things.
Yeah.
You're going to catch yourself now, folks. You're going to catch yourself thinking, oh, this is a good sensory, and then realizing no,
it's not.
Yeah. I hope you do catch yourself, because the children need what actually are sensory experiences for healthy brain development. Okay. I think that's enough to ponder about that, especially on a holiday. We're going to go enjoy our holiday. And we will catch you next time on the podcast.
Bye, peeps.